Welcome to this screencast designed to introduce you to some basic principles of referencing your work. Do you want to avoid these comments on your academic writing? Because if you're getting these kinds of comments on your work, it's likely you need to get to grips with two key academic skills: referencing and using other writers and sources in your own writing. This is the age-old question. Referencing feels time-consuming. It's often the last thing you want to do after you've invested so much energy in writing the assignment in the first place. If I had £1 for every student who'd asked me, "What's the point?" I'd be pretty well off by now. So why reference? Well, here are some reasons why. You need to give evidence to support statements that you make. And your reader needs to be able to find the source of your evidence for themselves so that they know what kind of source it is and they can make a judgment about the way you've used it in your writing. What it boils down to is that you need to show that your writing has been informed by the work of others who have studied the same issues as you, and your reader needs to be able to track this information down for themselves. So what do you reference? Well, here's a basic rule that means you can't go far wrong. In other words, if you found some information online, if you read it in a book, if you saw it in a newspaper, it needs referencing. If the reader is likely to read a comment you've written and respond with something like, "Really?" or "Who says so?" or "Why's that?" or some similar question, the chances are you need a reference. When you think about it, that's probably quite a lot of what you write that will need referencing. So we'd better look at what kind of information your reference needs to provide. Think about it. If I'm reading your work and I want to find the source of your information and evaluate how you've used it, I need some pretty specific information to help me track it down. And once you've got all this information, it helps to present it in a consistent format. In fact, it not only helps, it's standard academic practice, so you have to do it. That's where referencing styles come in. The remainder of this video introduces you to Harvard referencing, which is the style we want you to use for your writing on this course. There are some minor variations across institutions, so for the purposes of this course, the key thing is to be consistent in your style. In essence, this means making consistent use of commas and italics and so on. And as a reference point, we're going to use the Bournemouth University guidelines, and there's a link to these on Moodle. References within the text are called in-text citations. Note that if you paraphrase the author's point of view, you don't need a page number. You just need the author's name and the year of publication. Here's a couple of examples. If you quote directly, then you do need to use quotation marks and include the page number, just as we've done in this example. Okay, in terms of reference list, let's take a look at the suggested readings for Unit 504 and look at how we'd reference them in the reference list. Let's start with Linda Wilson's book, Practical Teaching. Here's the reference exactly as it would appear according to the Bournemouth University guidelines in your reference list. Here's the author's surname, followed by their initial. Note the full stop and the comma, and then the date of publication, also followed by a full stop. Here we have the place of publication, and then the name of the publisher. And note then that the book title is in italics and that the subtitle comes after a colon. And all this information can be found on the title page of the book. For a book with multiple authors, such as the one by Armitage and others that we've recommended for this unit, you do need to include full details of each author in your reference list. It makes the reference list quite long, but once you've listed the authors, the rest of the reference is just the same as for a book with one author. So note here we've got all the authors' names And for each author, we've given their surname first, then their initial. And note, for consistency, we've used the full stop and the comma after each initial, just as we did for the Linda Wilson book. Just a little extra here, this is the 4th edition of that book, and we need to make clear which edition that we've used. And so we add that edition number after the title, but it's not in italics. All the other information is presented exactly as for a book with one author. And the in-text citation for this just reads Armitage et al. You don't need to use up your word count giving all the authors' names. Et al means and others, and so you can include this and then just the date of the publication is fine. Here's the web link to the InFed article that we recommended for this unit. But note that it doesn't give any of the information we said that we needed for a reference. There's no author, there's no date of publication, and it's not clear whether the words in the web link are the title of the article or not. So we can't simply paste the web address into our essay and reference list, and we can't simply list InFed as the source. But in this case, the website's been pretty helpful. This is a screenshot of the end of the article, and it's given you all the information you need for your citation, neatly presented Harvard style. But for the sake of consistency, we're going to make some minor alterations so that it matches the format provided by the Bournemouth University guidelines. So here comes the adapted reference. Take a look at pages 9 to 10 of the Bournemouth University guidelines to check this out. So note that in a difference to the screenshot, we've made some changes to the presentation of the author and publication date related to the use of commas and full stops. This makes it consistent with our other reference list entries. Here's the title of the article. Note that it's in inverted commas and there are no italics because the website title is the thing we put in italics in this reference. Note also the use of the word online in square brackets, just to let the reader be absolutely clear that this is an electronic source. We've also made some changes to the format of the website address in relation to the Bournemouth University guidelines, so that again we're aiming for consistency. And here's the date that we accessed the article online. Again, that just appears in square brackets. And note that the web address has no italics, again in keeping with the Bournemouth University guidelines. The next reference is a web page rather than an online article. You'll find the format for this on page 10 of the Bournemouth University guidelines. We know the website name, and there's some date information at the bottom of the web page, and the web page itself has a title. However, there's less information than the InFed article, so we have to go with what we have. And here's the reference. Here we've used the website title instead of the author's name. And we have a date range rather than one single publication date, because this is the only information that we're given at the bottom of the web page. Here again is the title of the web page. Note the italics and the use of the word online in square brackets. And then all the web information is exactly the same as for the InFed article. Again, note the square brackets at the end where you need to tell the reader the exact date that you accessed that web page. Of course, in one screencast, it's not possible to cover every type of reference you may need to use. But we have covered some formatting principles here. Things relating to consistent use of commas and full stops and dates and italics and so on. And the guidelines from Bournemouth University are there to help you get your referencing right every time. Have fun!